How my wife and I turned a $5,000 investment into $6 million. Hey everyone, my name is Richie Matthews. My wife and I started a side hustle business in early 2000 to help offset the seasonality of our event production company. We produced for about 10 years large outdoor festivals and trade shows for ourselves, for our own company. It's a very seasonal business, and to help offset that, we looked hard into the Airbnb space. So for about 6 months, we weighed our options. Should we purchase a property, or should we try this rental arbitrage business model, as it's known? Rental arbitrage is a business model where you lease properties, and with the owner's permission, you sublease them on sites like Airbnb as a furnished rental. So compared to buying a property and renovating it potentially, and then buying furniture, the cash on cash return for the rental arbitrage business model is relatively quick if it's done correctly. So we looked into it. I was very skeptical at the time about the business model in general. I didn't really understand it. But the closer I looked, the more I realized it really is just about the cash flow. So on one hand, you get equity, right? When you buy a property in the Airbnb space, especially in the rental arbitrage model, it's all about the cash flow. And that's what we were looking for. We were looking to offset the seasonality of our event production company. We didn't want to do it with a massive investment, right? I mean, why spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single income stream? And so we were looking to do this at scale. So we started our first in February of 2020. It was a $4,800 investment, so under $5,000, basically furniture. You're investing in furniture. It was $4,500 in furniture, and it was a very modest deposit. I actually negotiated the first month's rent free because the building had a higher vacancy rate. And so I kind of figured out quickly, and that was sort of the sweet spot. So to find a building that needed an occupancy, so we would offer value in that regard. And so we picked up our first in February. It paid us back in March. Picked up another. Now, we didn't use our own cash for the second deal. The second deal was from the cash flow from the first deal. And that's all we did, was repeat that particular, method. Every other month, we picked up a unit or two or three. Within 12 months, we had 18 properties. By March of 2021, we had our first six-figure month. Fast forward one more year, we had 45 properties, and we're eclipsing over $200,000 a month. And to date, we've acquired 60 rental arbitrage properties and grossed over $6 million. Now, that's gross revenue, but that's what the $5,000 initial investment produced. And that business has been passive for 2.5 years. Since the summer of 2021, we automated our entire process. And that was sort of a trial and error sort of thing. It took 1.5 years from the first unit we picked up in February of 2020 till August of 2021, 1.5 years later, just about. We were figuring out how to, sort of automate the entire process. And so here's what we learned. So first, find properties that have a higher vacancy in an otherwise solid market. So find a good short-term rental market at high demand, and then find in that market if there's weakness in the rental market. So that's what we look for, the disparity between the short-term rental demand side and then the weakness in the rental market is really what we're looking for. Most of the time, people are strictly looking on the demand side. Yeah, is it short-term rental? Is it a great market for short-term rentals? Is it a great Airbnb market? Typically, a lot of those markets, rents are pretty high. So what we're looking for is to 2x rent. So that's basically our formula. I'm looking for markets where I'm able to double the amount that the rent costs. So if a market, the median rent in a given market for a 2-bedroom apartment is $2,000, I'm looking for historical data that shows that I'm going to make $4,000. It's that simple. I also look for lack of seasonality. I'm looking in markets that have strong work travel, business travel, and leisure travel. So that's what I'm looking for. Then once I find those markets, I'm then approaching landlords, apartment buildings. So our business model is dependent upon the multifamily world. I'm not rental arbitraging single-family homes. With single-family homes, you should buy them. That's a totally different business model. Most single-family homeowners that are putting their properties on Airbnb use their properties. They're getting amortization, equity, debt pay down, all those good benefits that you get from real estate. It's a totally different business model than the arbitrage business model, which is all about the cash flow. It's a hospitality business. We're not in real estate in the arbitrage business, if you really think about it. And so for that reason, we're looking at the multifamily world. So think about it this way. In the city that I live in, there's a giant Marriott, has the marina downtown, has a big luxurious property. And there's an individual named Doug who owns that property. He's owned it for 30 plus years. The Marriott Hotel leases that property, a master lease from them. They lease the marina, they lease the grounds and the restaurants and the buildings and all that stuff from Doug. Doug gets all the benefits of ownership. He gets tax benefits, potential equity, appreciation, all of that. He's not an operator, doesn't want to be an operator, I'm sure. The Marriott is a hospitality expert. They're the operators. They have the brand. They don't own the property. They're using someone else's asset for their cash flow business. So that's the model. So it's no different in rental arbitrage. We're leasing properties. And that's why the multifamily property type is for us. So that's why I say don't do single family homes. The other reason why we don't rental arbitrage single family homes is that you really can't scale like you can with multifamily apartment buildings. So with apartment buildings, owners typically own several properties. You partner with them, you provide value for them. They're typically going to invite you to use their other properties. And that's the way we scale. We partnered with the buildings. Whereas a single family homeowners typically don't own 20 or 30 homes that you can scale with, or if they're actually turnkey and ready and proper for short-term rentals. And also the investment, there's a significant investment in furnishing a home versus an apartment. If you ever stayed in a single family home Airbnb, they have a great, usually a game room in the garage and a killer backyard and all that. And who wants to invest that kind of funds in someone else's assets? So for us, it's the multifamily world. And so we approach landlords when they have high vacancy in an otherwise fantastic market, offer the value, aka leverage, and in return, they're typically giving us what's called rent concessions. They're usually waiving the first month's rent free, at least the first month's rent free. We've gotten 10 weeks rent before. I've gotten 8 weeks before. We've gotten 8 weeks last year. And so for that reason, it's the multifamily world. So step one is find a killer market. Step two is look for landlords that you can offer value in. And then step three is keeping your properties booked. The business. This is the business, right? So how do you keep your properties booked? Right now, the standard is really low. Most hosts are struggling because they're not doing the very minimal things that they need in their properties to stay booked, going multi-platform. So instead of just being on Airbnb or Vrbo, like most hosts are doing, you could be on booking.com or Expedia or a bunch of other platforms. And then you can channel them all together through a channel manager. So you have one particular software that, sort of brings them all together, connects your calendars. You have your guest messaging all through one particular channel. The second thing I would do is then get pricing software. Dynamic pricing will actually make you money. Even though it's a cost, it's software, it will make you money. Have an intentional design sense. You don't have to break the bank, and it is apartment. It's not your property. So there's, some things that you can do that are very inexpensive. You can add an accent wall. You paint the ceiling. There's, believe it or not, that is a thing right now. The top book Airbnbs, you can go right now on Airbnb and look at the very top listings that Airbnb is promoting in the various markets. And most of the time you'll see some sort of ceiling designed, whether it's a killer chandelier or painted ceiling or sconcing and that sort of thing. You can do that very inexpensively on like an accent wall, blackout drapes, rip out the blinds, that sort of thing. Professional photos. I can't tell you how many hosts are shooting themselves in the foot by taking out their iPhone and taking photos in their units. I did it. In the very beginning, I did that. It was a colossal mistake. I learned the hard way through trial and error that the way to stay booked is to enhance your property, and professional photos and staging and design are a great start in that realm. Now, there's a lot of other things you can do to optimize your listing, like checking all the boxes in your amenities, adding things like a blender and a rice cooker and a bicycle, and all those things so you can check each box. So if someone is searching for for a property and they need a blender and you don't have one, or at least that amenity is not checked on your listing, guess what? You're not going to show up in their feed. So check as many boxes as you can and add as many features in your property as you can. So staying booked right now, the bar is really low. And I think that's probably why you're hearing about so many hosts struggling. It's not just because there's lack of demand. It's really not that at all. And it's not even because there's too much supply. What's happening right now is there's too much supply in the middle. A lot of hosts are just sort of setting it and forgetting it. They think that the way to supercharge their income stream is to take their property and stick it on Airbnb. And so it's a business. So you have to treat it like that and have some intentionality. I think in a year or two from now, that most hosts will be doing some of the things that I'm mentioning right now. And then in the future, some other thing will be the thing that you need to do. My opinion, it will be about real design and direct booking. But right now, you can go multi-platform, get dynamic pricing. You can get some nice design and intention and all that in your property. So those are the first three steps. But that's where the business is active. Those three steps is pretty much how most hosts are treating their business. They're treating it, okay, I have to find a great market, then I have to find a property, and now I have to, be the host, right? Figure that out. So that's an active business. The Airbnb business model is treated as a very, very active business. Most people call it an active business. Actually, it's inherently scalable. This is an inherently, a passive business model. If you really think about it, 90% of what goes on in the day-to-day operations of a short-term rental company is communication. And so you can scale communications. You can, do it from anywhere in the world. And for that reason, we hire our entire front desk we built years ago in the Philippines. And so they schedule our housekeepers, communicate with housekeepers about any issues that come up. They're responding to inquiries around the clock. We have 24/7 coverage. So they're responding to inquiries in the middle of the night. And if you're the host that responds to an inquiry in the middle of the night, you're going to win that business over the host that's asleep. So it's sort of a no-brainer to do that. And so they are scheduling housekeepers, responding to inquiries, and they're managing guests. Guests check in. Half of our guests we don't hear from through the tire reservations, which is great. But the other half, hey, can I stay an extra day? Hey, can my friend come over? Can I do this? Can I do that? And so you're going to have someone on your team responding to that. So that's 90% of the business. The other 10% of the time that we need to be on site at the properties, our housekeeper. So our housekeepers do way more than just clean the properties. They're typically doing inventory checks and supplies and all kinds of things, right? So they're doing that in the off chance that we need to fix something in the unit. Guess what? We're renters. That's the building. The building, and we throw in a ticket on the platform in our apartments and they fix it. And so that's our business model. Now, occasionally we have to fix or replace something in the unit. And if the housekeepers can't do that particular thing, and believe it or not, they do most of it, then yeah, someone on our team goes there. So for that reason, this business model can be managed anywhere in the world. So you don't need to be near your properties. Again, that's the single family home Airbnb model, being near your properties because you want to access them and use them. Fine. I totally appreciate that business model. But for us, you can then now look at the very, very best markets in the country. So Airbnb arbitrage is an inherently scalable business. And so that last step, that fourth step, took a while for us. Took a year and a half if you think about the whole process. In the last 6 months, we've split testing everything, every possible, booking scenario and expense that we're making the guests pay and all that stuff. We split tested and we finally came up with that 4-step formula. And then within the automations part of this business, we also split tested a whole bunch, how to onboard our VAs really quickly and our housekeepers really quickly to shorten the learning curve and all of that. So to date, we've earned well over $6 million, all of that from that first investment of $5,000. We didn't put a dime in the company. After that, it was all on cash flow. And I'll break it down quickly and how the first year looks. So in February 2020, we invested our first unit under 5,000, like I mentioned. In March, we got an identical unit. It was actually the very next door in the building. And so we had the same model. This time, we actually spent a bit less because we kind of learned our lesson from the first one, right? Trial and error. So then we took the cash flow from those. I actually got 4 weeks rent concessions on that March unit. We went back to the building. Now, keep in mind, COVID just hit. All of our events that we own, by the way, that we produced were just canceled. So we were very desperate to make this business model work. So we went back to the building and sensed that because of COVID, they had a vacancy issue. And so we then negotiated 10 weeks free rent in March 15th. We didn't pay rent until July 1. So now we had 4 units. We took 2 units, another one bedroom, this time a 2-bedroom penthouse. That penthouse did so well. By June, we accumulated enough capital to pick up 3 more units. Now, we didn't take delivery of those units at once. Again, I was super cautious. I wanted each unit to prove itself to us. And so in June, we took one. July, we took another. And then August, the 1st of August, we took our another one. So now we had 7 properties. Immediately cash flowed, all 7 of those cash flowed. Those 3, by the way, we got rent concessions as well. And so then in mid-August, we took 2 more, same owner, by the way. We now had 9 rental arbitrage properties. We were subleasing 9 apartments in 3 different cities from one owner. So you can see the power of the partnership with the multifamily owner. They saw the value in our relationship because vacancies were higher because there was this, artificial recession that we were experiencing during COVID. And now we're seeing very similar market conditions. And I'm here to say this is actually a very, very good time to scale. This is a time to get in the business because owners are feeling the pinch of high interest rates and of vacancies as a result of that and of the result of inflation and pending recession. So we were quickly, when I mean quickly, I mean by February of 2020 till August of 2020, picking up 9 properties and creating a $14,000 net revenue, monthly revenue stream for our family was important because we lost our income stream due to COVID. So we then thought of this business model in that month in August. After we seeing how quickly we got to this with 0 experience, I could add, we saw the power of this and we went quickly into scaling. And like I said, by March of 2021, we then had 18 properties. A year later, 45 properties. And ultimately, we've acquired 60 leases that we sublease on sites like Airbnb and Vrbo and all of those others. And it is passive. This is a very, very powerful business model. But let me caution you about a few things. That's all the great part of this. So the downside of this is this business model is inherently the margins are thinner. So rent is typically more than mortgage. Not so in a lot of markets this year, but let me just go in general terms here. So our margins are thinner. For that reason, it's very important that you internalize all your operations costs, meaning don't hire a property manager. Don't hire a cleaning service or a handyman service or anything like that. Those are the typical go-tos for most hosts, whether you own a property or you're doing what we do, subleasing. It's important that you internalize it. That's where we worked out all of the fine tuning of our system. And it was really important for us to do that. So watch your business model expenses. So that's how we've earned over $6 million, starting with a $5,000 investment in 2020. So thanks for showing. Until my next video, see you next time.